Howdy guys, how you all doing? So, for those of you who just did strike zone and pump, nice work. For those of you who are just tuning in for a little bit of martial arts technique, hopefully you saw last week's video, which was on how to stand and how to move. Also, hopefully you've spent the week practicing that. Now, I like to say, like with all this stuff, we're starting at the beginning, but that doesn't mean that these are basics. It's not doesn't mean that it's basic technique. I mean, I guess it is because it's at the beginning. But what makes people good at martial arts is how good their basics are. And you spend years and years and years learning how to punch, learning how to kick, doing all this stuff. But really, those years and years and years are spent getting better and better at learning how to stand, how to move, and how to do your basic punches and kicks. Yeah, it's basics, but also no, it's not. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is good for people who are starting out. This is also good for people who've been doing martial arts for a long time. Doesn't matter what style you've been doing, the principles behind all martial arts are the same, really, whether it's boxing, karate, taekwondo, kung fu, whatever, jiu-jitsu. Well, I guess grappling's a little bit different, but but for your techniques where you're punching, kicking, blocking, all that kind of stuff, checking moves, very similar, very similar. So hopefully you did your standing and moving stuff from last week. Just a quick recap. You can't see my feet. Okay, that's going to be a problem. Let's just move this down a bit. How is that? And up. It's back a bit. Back we go. Come on. You can tell I prepared this earlier. Not winging it at all. Okay, so now here's where some stuff might differ, because I like to do things a certain way that I've developed for myself over the years. The way that I like to fight is good for if you're a little person facing a bigger person, because I'm quite short, and I've always had to defend myself against bigger people and multiple people. Like if you get attacked on the street or out, wherever, walking around the place, there's always 2 or 3 guys. There's never one-on-one, not like in a ring, not like in a competition situation where you're matched up, height, weight, ability, all that kind of stuff is matched up and you go at it. This is good for if you're outmatched, outsized, and so the crux of it is keep yourself stable, keep yourself fast, keep yourself mobile, and get the hell out of there. All right. Anyway, but I find for mobility, it's best to keep your weight 50-50 balanced. Yeah, this is what we talked about last week. 50-50 balance means I can move in any direction, any point in time. Yeah. Now, tell you what, because I could demo Southpaw, but probably better if I just flip this video. Or is it flipped already? It's flipped already. No, it's not. Sorry. Whatever. You can flip it yourself. Now, I'm standing with my left leg forward. Yeah. Now, the reason for that is I'm right-handed. My right side is my power side. You can generate more power off of your back leg. So back leg should be the right leg that's back. So I can generate my most powerful strike off my most powerful side. If I'm standing the other way around in this configuration, I can generate more power off my left leg here. So when I'm standing like this, between my right hand hitting and my left hand hitting, my left strike is going to be harder than my right in this configuration. But this is not my hardest strike. This is. Yeah. So I want to keep that leg back, so I've always got that available to me. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons to keep your right leg, to keep your right leg back if you're right-handed, left leg back if you're left-handed. There are other reasons, but that's the most glaring one for me. I like to have my powerful strike at the ready. Now, 50-50 weight. As I move, everything is a drive. Everything's a push. Push, push, push. Yep. I don't want to step and be putting more weight into this leg and overbalancing. I don't want to step this way and have weight here. When I'm stepping back, I'm not leaning on my back leg. Step front, I'm not leaning on my front leg. Yeah. Every time I move, there are 2 footfalls to every step, and I'm balanced, 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 balanced. At the point where I'm unbalanced, where my leg is coming up, because I've done a push, I'm driving into whatever. So if I am moving this way and I need to hit, if I get the opportunity to hit, I can hit as I move. Yeah? If I am about to be hit and I'm going to check something, I can check it with power and balance. As opposed to if I'm stepping across like this, if I'm stepping across and I have to hit someone, there's not going to be any power in this strike because I'm not balanced. Yeah. If I'm stepping across this way and I have to block, as I accept that block, that hit, I'm going to get pushed over because this leg isn't in a balanced position. So every move, driving. That way I can attack as I retreat, I can defend as I retreat, I can move, I have power in every step I'm taking. Yeah? So that's important. That's what we went over last week. Quick recap. If you haven't practiced that, I mean, you can watch today's video, but once you finish watching today's video, go back and watch last week's video and do your practice, because how you stand and how you move is the foundation of all of your fighting. Yeah. So if you can't stand properly, if you can't move properly, it doesn't matter how many fancy spin kicks you can do. Doesn't matter how many backflips and pirouettes or whatever you can do. If you can't stand right, it's all for nothing. Yeah. So your foundation has to be solid and strong. Okay. Now, building off of a solid foundation, we've got our punches. Now, you're standing with your elbows in to protect you from midsection shots. Now, I like to, where you're standing needs to be able to check a lot of stuff. So if someone goes to punch my head, ideally I would avoid the punch, avoid the blow. But if I can't avoid it, I want to make the smallest move possible to block. Yeah. So if someone's shooting for my ribs, just that is all I want to do to block. If I'm standing out here and someone's shooting for my ribs, I've got a long way to travel to block a shot. Yeah. I'd rather have myself in position so I just absorb that hit without even having to think about it. Yeah. Now, and that's especially good for if there's multiple people trying to beat you. You don't want to have to be thinking about all of them because it's not possible to. You'd rather be the person you're facing, yeah, and then someone else hits you. That gets checked by your arm. That's beautiful. But if you're standing all wide and I don't know, whatever, hard to do that. So make sure your defense is nice and tight. Now, the jab. The jab's a fun one. All of your power comes from your legs and comes from rotation and weight transfer. Okay, that's with everything. Yeah? Now, for me to get power into my jab, I have to transfer weight from my back leg to my front leg. Yeah. Now I'm 50-50, so I want to pick this front leg up for a sec and put it down. Yeah. That transfers that weight from my back leg to my front leg, and then once this leg hits the ground, I come back to balance. Yeah. But for that split second where I pick this foot up, all my weight comes down that front leg. Yeah. As that front leg hits the ground, my fist hits the target. So then all of my weight is being transferred back leg to front leg as I strike. So I weigh anywhere between 85 to 90 kilos ish, depending on how hard I'm going at things. So I want to make sure that I deliver all of that onto my opponent's nose or onto his jaw or onto his eye socket. Bam. Yep. So you time it so that you get that weight transfer as your hand lands. Yep. Now, the shortest path between any 2 points is a straight line. So my hand needs to come straight out to my opponent's face. Bam. I transfer my weight and I get a bit of rotation so that the muscles, my glutes, my hamstrings, my quads are all in this. Yeah. The next most important thing is to get the bones lined up nice and straight. Yeah? So when I hit my jab, I need this arm to be fairly straight on impact, or I want it to. The more bent it is, like if I have a straight arm, that can take a lot of pressure without the joint buckling. But as my arm bends, it's going to buckle as it hits that resistance. When you punch something, you go from having zero resistance, I'm sailing through the air, and then all of a sudden I hit my target, and there's 100% resistance up against my fist. Now, if I'm hitting in here, yeah, with a straight strike, and I'm pushing this through, I'm going to hit, there's going to be a sponginess to my arm before it straightens back out again. Now, that little bit of sponginess takes a lot of the sting out of your strikes. So you want to time it so that you're hitting and you've got a straight enough arm, not completely straight. Don't want you to ever lock your joints out. That's bad for them. But has to be straight enough so that when you hit, that's not going to buckle. Yeah. So there's my jab. There's my jab. Now you'll notice my chin is dropped in. Now that's not so that I'm looking at the floor. I'm looking straight ahead, but if you have a look at the line of my shoulders, the line of my nose and jaw, that's actually covered up quite well. Yeah. So things coming around the side, they can hit me mainly through this top bit is okay. Yeah. I can take some pretty decent strikes up here. Where I can't take the heavy hits is down here. Yeah. Because that's going to rattle my brain around, knock me out. It's going to really hurt my jaw. A busted nose will make my eyes watery. So I want to protect this section, so that's actually sitting down here, yeah. And as I throw that jab, my shoulder is coming up to meet my face, yeah. Now I haven't compromised my shoulder like this, where it's actually a weak position and my shoulder's going to buckle. The shoulder's set and strong, but it's coming up to meet here, yeah? So that if I'm throwing this jab out and someone throws an errant strike to this side, I'm tucked in, it's all going to hit this, and that's fine. I'm actually quite safe there. Yeah. Other hand is up, elbow is in. That's the jab. Now for the cross, I want you guys to practice your jab a bit actually. If you've got a bag, get on your bag, practice throwing your jab. Practice that weight transference, practice pushing through the strike. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. I need some practicing music, like elevator music or something. I don't know. Whatever. All right, come on back. Now that we've finished our jab practice, rotation, weight transference, yeah. Making sure we're staying front on, yeah. Now, even when I throw my jab, I've rotated through. My hips are fairly front on. I'm not dead straight. I'm a little bit angled off, but you want to be pretty front on, because you see where my jab hand reaches to. I want my cross to reach a similar distance. If I'm standing side on, my jab hand reaches there, my cross is nowhere near it. To bring my heavy strike in range or to bear, I've got to come quite a long way around, yeah, which makes me slow, yeah, too slow. Now, if you're fighting someone who's bigger than you, your advantage, or one of your advantages, usually is your speed, yeah. You don't want to lose that by standing long, yeah. So I like to have both of my hips facing pretty much front on, yeah, and that way my big hit is in range always, yeah. So I can range find with my light, bam, 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 and once I feel like I've got a good, nice connection with my jab, the cross comes through, because I know that that's really in range. Spending energy on the cross is something I don't want to do over and over and over again when I don't need to, because it's quite taxing. And if you've ever been in a real fight, you know how taxing it is. Every strike you throw depletes you. Yeah, so you gotta reserve those and keep them safe. Anyway, I'm waffling on a bit. So your cross, I've got my hips facing pretty much forward. I throw my jab. When I throw my cross, I generally want to step this leg up a little, yeah, so that I can drive with that hip, yeah. So, or if I'm just standing there and someone happens to walk right into my cross range, that's fine. I'll just fire it. But usually you're moving. You're getting cross range. This leg steps up a bit and it throws my hips around. It's my hip that's doing the punch. So you imagine your target is here and you're using your hip bone to hit it, yeah? Bam! So I'm hitting this target with my hip, yeah? And this foot is on the floor driving that strike. Now, something I see a lot of, this is quite a common mistake with people when they're throwing their cross, is because they're moving around, they go to throw their cross and they'll have this leg step back as they cross over like this, yeah? Now, you can see, I'm exaggerating it, but that's a compromised position. I've actually pulled the power of my hip away from my strike, which is pushing forward. Whenever you strike, every little bit of energy your body puts out needs to go towards your target. Yeah. So when I throw my cross, my leg is going to plunge on the floor. My hip is spinning my body towards my target. And that energy travels up through my body and out through my fist. Bam. Yeah. And in that way, every single bit of rotation, every single bit of power from my quads, my hamstrings, my glutes, all the big muscles are behind my fist. Yeah. So it's not these tiny little muscles here and here that are doing the punch. It's actually my legs. My legs are quite big, and that's why I train my legs so much, is because that's where your power comes from. If you have skinny, scrawny little legs, train the crap out of them, because that's where your power comes from. Without big legs, no power. All right. So step this up, push this through, and there's your cross straight. Yeah? 1, 2, and like I said, straight path from A to B. Something else I see that people tend to do is they'll swoop their hand down and up, yeah, as they cross. Your cross needs to come straight out. Yeah. Another thing I see is people will pull back before they cross. Don't do that. If you pull back, I know a punch is coming. I'm going to dodge, or I'm going to check, or I'm going to get myself in a good position to hurt you once you throw that hand out. So don't pull back. Just, you're here, that comes straight forward. This comes up, this comes forward, that comes forward. That's it. That's all there is to it. And then it's a matter of working out your timing so that you land that punch at the point where your hips have fully locked out and transferred that energy through to your fist. So just about timing at that point. So that's your jab, that's your cross. 1 and 2. Very easy jab and cross. Now, what is less easy is the hook. Now, hooks have a few things that people do wrong. Yeah, you tend to see hooks. Well, firstly, for any of you who did the Strike Zone class earlier, they're quite popular, those kind of classes. But what I find is, because a lot of the time, when those classes are being instructed, they're being instructed by a fitness instructor, not a martial artist. And so some of the cues get mixed up and wrong, and then people do those classes and then decide to do martial arts once they've got a taste for it from doing those classes. That's a funny path to take to it, but it's a common one. And what it tends to lead to is people having their hips disconnected from their hands. And one of the big cues that does that is people always get told when you're doing your hooks, you're going to raise your heel. Yeah? And so everyone gets in this mindset of, oh, I'm doing a hook, raise my heel, raise my heel. But can you see, me raising my heel has nothing to do with pushing my hip around, which is where that power comes from. Yeah. By raising my heel, I'm actually taking the power of this leg out of the equation completely, and then my hook is just my arm. Yeah. So what you need to wire yourself toward is all that power comes from the hips. If I'm hooking someone, it's my legs that are hooking them and spinning myself around. This heel is going to raise whether I want it to or not if I'm pushing my hip around. Yeah, it kind of has to. So forget about the raising your heel cue. That's a dumb cue. Don't do that anymore. What you want as your cue is drive the hips around. Always driving the hips around. And your heel can do whatever the hell it likes. Okay? But once again, you imagine that your target is here, and I'm throwing my hip into that target. Yeah? That's where that power comes from. It's not from my arms. My arms should be nice and loose, nice and spaghetti. The hip comes around, bam, the arm hits. Yeah, that heel drives. That hip drives. Now, that's one mistake. The other mistake with the hook, I find, is people come back, pull, pull, pull. They wind up this big hook and they fire it forward. If you're winding up like that, by the time you've wound up, the person you're fighting is going to duck or dodge or smother you or do something to render this ineffective. Yeah. So you don't want to wind up. But have a look at the point that I wind up to here. Yeah. Now, this position that I'm in, if I turn myself side on, that's kind of the position I want to be in for my hook, right? Now, rather than doing a wind up, you wind as you're hooking. There's my wind. Yeah. Now, if you have a look at the position I'm in, it's the same position that I wound up to. Yeah. But my target is here. Yeah. So rather than coming here and I'm wound up, and then I've got all this distance to travel, see I'm wound up, and once again I'll do the demonstration. I turn myself side on like this, look at me wind up, that's my wind up. But instead of being right next to my target, I'm all the way out here. I wind up as my hips do the wind. Yeah? So I've wound up, but the distance between my fist and my target is that. It's tiny. Yeah? As I wind, yeah, my elbow comes up to be behind the direction that I'm throwing my punch in. Yeah? So if I'm throwing a punch that is horizontal, perpendicular to the floor, yeah, I want my arm to be on that same plane. My whole arm, the elbow behind the fist. Yeah? So that when I hit, because I'm throwing myself on that trajectory, bam, my elbow is right behind that fist. Now, if I were hitting something that was on this angle and I'm hitting slightly upwards, my elbow is once again behind my fist. Yep. If I'm hitting something on a downward plane, slightly downwards, my hip is going to come down, my elbow is going to come behind my fist. Now, that's very important because that's another thing that people do wrong with their hooks. When they hook, let's say I'm doing a horizontal plane hook, I see this a lot where the elbow will be dropped. Yeah? So the hook comes out like that and it hits, but because that elbow is not behind that fist, you hit and you get this happen before you straighten up and drive through. That can hurt your shoulder, but it also makes your punch or your hook spongy, very spongy. You're sponging the power out of it. You need to hit and have this behind it so that when you strike, there's nowhere for that energy to go other than straight through your target. Yeah? If you're down here, you're going to hit, it's going to sponge, and then it's going to push through your target spongily. Yeah? So you might not do the damage you've intended to do. You're definitely not going to do the damage that is equivalent to the energy output you just had. And like I said before, every time you throw a punch or a strike or a kick or whatever, it saps some of your energy. You got to conserve your energy as much as possible. So that's got to land lined up. Okay, so and there's one other thing with hooks that I see a lot of is people will throw a hook, and once they hit their target, they straighten their arm out. They hook and they straighten their arm. Now, what you're doing by that is you're not following through the direction you've thrown your energy in. And I actually had someone who was a bit of an idiot, but it was all like, oh, you're always talking about energy, you believe in, chi power and stuff. Nothing to do with that. Like when you throw a ball, you're throwing energy behind that ball, right? Yeah, there's nothing mystical about it. It's physics. Same thing with your punches. Now, if you're not going to follow the energy that you've put out, a rotational energy for a hook, if you're going to hit and then split by going straight, you've actually split your energy off. Yeah, which means that in both of those directions, you got less than 100% of that singular energy you're just throwing out. Yeah, pretty simple concept to grasp. But so when you throw your hook, rotational hook, you have to keep that rotational direction through the strike once you've hit it. And it sounds counterintuitive because you hit it and then you want to follow where this goes to. Forget about where that goes to. You're throwing your strike, you follow it through to its completion. You're going to find that if you do it as an experiment with a friend, hit a pad, your friend is going to feel the power in your strike much, much, much more when you follow your hook through to its completion than hitting the pad and then straightening your arm out. Yeah? That's an important cue. So we've got a few important cues for the hook. It's not a complicated strike. It's very easy, but those little bits that can trip you up massively. And if you're doing any one of those wrong, you're going to have weaker hooks than what your body has the potential to put out. So first of all, with your wind up, the hips are just going to fire out. Your hand is going to sail directly from where it is to contacting your target. Your hips move, the hand sails to the target. The elbow is the next point. The elbow comes up behind the strike. So your hand is going directly from A to B. The hips move, elbow comes up, hand A to B, follow through to completion. That's it. Pretty easy, right? Now, I've talked lots in today's session, and I didn't really make any notes. I just thought I'd wing it. Whatever. I like winging it. That's your homework for this week. Jab, cross, and hook. Add it to your homework from last week. So you've got your how to stand, how to move, how to step, and now you've got how to jab, how to cross, how to hook. All the points that I've gone through today are important. If you can do all that stuff, you're going to have extremely fast, extremely snappy, extremely powerful, extremely non-telegraphic strikes, which will make you pretty dangerous. Or well, you know, hopefully you're not dangerous, but they'll make you less pick-onable. What else? Did I have anything else for today? I don't think I did. I think that's about it. Looseness is the last thing. Everything has to be loose. Your body needs to be loose. If you tense up your chest and get a friend to punch you in the chest, yep, it'll hurt a bit, right? And then loosen up your chest. Go really limber and get your friend to punch you in the chest. You'll barely feel it, right? It's important to not be tense like that. If you're like all tensed up, every time you get hit, it's going to rattle your whole body. It's going to hurt a lot. If you're loose, every time you get hit, your body just sort of, moves, and it's fine. Taking hits is part of martial arts. You have to be able to take hits. You have to be able to take hard hits. So working on ways to make your body supple so that those hits don't hurt you is good. But also, loose arms travel faster, much, much faster. So if your arms are nice and loose, you got to throw that hook. Your hips move, your arm moves in place. This is all loose, even up to the point of impact. It's loose. And for me, I don't really have tense anything, and I also don't even close my fists. I have had years and years and years and years of making my bones able to do that. But as long as everything's lined up, you can hit with a loose arm, yeah? So the looser the better. What's safer to do is on impact, tense it up and then loosen again once you've lost impact. I probably do that a little bit. It's grained into me from my Wing Chun days, but looseness is important. So those are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to practice for this week. That's it. I've been yabbering on for half an hour now, so that's all the time I have for tonight, and I will see you guys tomorrow for boxing. Thanks for watching.